Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Roundup. A PS5 special event is reportedly scheduled for June, but it seems Xbox might beat them to it. Then, Kotaku's collapse is continuing as their deputy editor has actually stood down. That's the site's second high-profile departure in as many weeks. Then, EA are winding up development on both Battlefield 5 and Star Wars Battlefront 2 to get ready for a next-gen Battlefield and a whole bunch more. As always, be sure to like, sub, ring that bell. It truly does help us out, and if you want some extra goodies, including actual physical ones, monthly loot, and the daily briefing, you can check out our Patreon in the link below. And with that said, let's now talk news. First up, Ubisoft decided to tease the next Assassin's Creed via a Photoshop art stream, which, you know what, is actually quite cool. Now, while doing that stream, they actually registered the Assassin's Creed Valhalla domain name, which pretty much outed the name of the game early, which is a fun little situation. So overall then, yeah, it's what you'd expect, right? A Norse Assassin's Creed game that, like with Odyssey, is incorporating the mythology of its setting into the game, which, for this one, I think is pretty good. Overall, I'd say probably good stuff. I mean, I'm a bit worried about microtransactions and maybe having a main campaign feel a bit less intricate than maybe like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood in the name of it being open world, which is always my concern with the modern ones. But that said, if, you know, the past two games are anything to go by, then it probably would be one of the better crafted open worlds out there, certainly in a setting that I'm into, and with them taking a year off between Odyssey and this one, yeah, I'd say I'm more than willing to actually give it a shot. Next up then, some next-gen news. So the PS5 official reveal is supposed to be coming June 4th. Microsoft, though, are expected to do a significant announcement in May. So it seems like Sony might be beaten to the punch, but maybe Microsoft will announce pricing first, allowing Sony to then do something a bit aggro afterwards. So as always, I mean, there's a game of chicken that's being played there. And speaking of Microsoft, well, Phil Spencer has been chatting once again, so we've got some things to talk about. Responding to a fan question on Twitter, he suggested that the Series X's dynamic latency input functionality is actually the console's killer feature. To me, that's very interesting given how bad the Xbone was for latency, so that's definitely interesting. And he also said that the jump to this gen will feel as dramatic as 2D to 3D. That seems like a bit of an oversell there, Phil. I mean, especially considering my computer's probably more powerful than what you're going to be shipping to people. But what I will say is, I mean, do you remember moving from a 60 hertz monitor to a 100, 120, or 200 hertz monitor, right? It does feel pretty good whenever it happens. Now, do you remember moving from, say, a not that good Bluetooth mouse to a really good gaming mouse? Well, for a lot of people, if this, like, latency reduction stuff is actually good, and they also turn on game mode in their television, then actually, yeah, in terms of responsiveness, it might feel really good. And yes, the SSDs might feel like a true leap forward, as long as, any special APIs are actually being leveraged by developers to, actually really make use of that tech. So I do understand those things feeling like a big leap forward, but in terms of the bread and butter of going and playing a video game, I certainly do think that saying it's like 2D to 3D, I think that might be a little bit of a stretch there, Phil. But anyway, we're getting very close to major announcement time, and that very much does mean that things are going to be heating up, and the news is going to be flowing pretty darn soon. Next up, some EA news. So, this week, Star Wars Battlefront 2 received its final content update. So, apparently with their vision for the game now complete, with their new Battle for Scarif update, DICE are diverting resources into maintaining servers and providing in-game challenges and events. But in terms of core content, that's it. DICE have actually been open about the fact that Battlefront 3 is not in development, and an EA statement reads that the studio will be focusing on, quote, the future of Battlefield that we'll be bringing to players in 2021. Now, with Battlefield 5 also receiving its last update in June, and my big post-mortem on that game is also up in the channel just a few days ago, but with that, it does look like EA and DICE are throwing everything they have at not repeating Battlefield 5's problems. This certainly is an interesting one to me. I think they know, right, that another dud entry to Battlefield, I mean, that would basically greatly hurt the franchise. I would say it would solidify the losses they made with Battlefield 5. I mean, BFV showed a lack of direction, a lack of understanding of their core audience, and severe production issues. I mean, they struggled to make enough content to actually keep that game alive, especially as compared to Battlefield 1. And the content they did release, I think it was Al Sandan especially, it was often buggy, often late. From what we understand as well, Criterion did just about all of Firestorm, so it actually makes sense that once Criterion left that project, Firestorm was just untouched and a bit broken, because DICE just didn't really do anything with it. So yeah, Battlefield needs help. Now, as for there being no Star Wars from DICE, it does kind of make sense to me, right? Like, there's not going to be movies to tie into with a big sales event, and the franchise, I mean, Star Wars has taken a hit, hasn't it? Big damage there. We do know there's a sequel to Fallen Order in the works, though, and there's at least one other Star Wars game, so it's not like EA have abandoned that franchise. I guess they just know, right, that like DICE probably just don't have the capacity to do Star Wars without risking the next Battlefield. And if I was to speculate there, I'd actually imagine that EA gets obviously a far greater slice of the pie when it comes to Battlefield revenue, given it's their own IP, right? Like with Star Wars being licensed, I've got to imagine they make, of the $60 that goes into a Star Wars game, I've got to imagine EA take home a decent bit less of it. So this is probably a wise move, though. It's definitely going to suck for a lot of people because this is a game that was going in a way better direction. People really felt like it was going into a good space. So it is sad that it's ending now. I think a year or two more content would have been something people would have enjoyed. And then for Battlefield, I mean, yeah, we did a little bit of, we did Pacific, but where's the Russians? Where's the Americans coming in to help liberate Europe? Where are those things? Not there. Feels like that game was kind of just, axed a little bit early. So, rough stuff for DICE. I don't know what it is. Is it them as a studio? Is it the tools they're using, running into problems? Or is it them spreading too thin, trying to do single player for Battlefield, co-op for Battlefield, front lines and all of that stuff for Battlefield, and having Firestorm exist, and doing the the Star Wars stuff? I mean, hard to know, but... yeah, God, it's all a bit sad, isn't it? I used to love just about everything DICE did, and now it's just a little bit more rocky. Anyway, you know what? I do like Battlefield, so you know what? More power to them. I hope this actually works out. And next up, we've got some news that, I'm sure that when you were watching this, you could barely contain yourself because Google Stadia Connect happened. Wow. And it was as underwhelming and boring as we have came to expect from everything from Stadia. EA are releasing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order on Stadia in autumn, with FIFA and Madden following in the winter. Yes, it's a bit late. They also promised 2 more titles coming in 2021, so, there's games you can get right now on other platforms, probably cheaper. I don't know why we'd bother with Stadia. Bit wild. Then PUBG, it's available right now there, and it's included with the Stadia Pro subscription. It also features some Stadia exclusive cosmetics and actual crossplay with console players. I'd say if there's any win here, it's probably that one. Also, Octopath Traveler is live there now, meaning that the X-Switch exclusive hit Stadia before the PS4 and the Xbox One, though it is also in Steam right now. This is a good move. Yes, it's more stuff on Stadia. It's also too little too late. I mean, come on. How's this going to entice new customers? Google, are you living in reality right now? Surely anyone who wants to play Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will have already done so on a console or a PC. Will they be willing to pay full price for that game on Stadia? Do they even have the internet connection to support it? Stadia truly are aiming for a tiny, tiny demographic, and it makes just about no sense. And then next up, the Kotaku exodus is continuing as its deputy editor, Maddie Myers, announced her departure after 3 years with the company. Myers started with Compete, which was Kotaku and Deadspin's joint esports site that, ended up being shuttered, and when that happened, she moved over to Kotaku. Myers outlined her history and her reasons for leaving in her final Kotaku blog. It's wild. Myers is the second high-profile departure from Kotaku in as many weeks. They lost Schreier. He was pretty much their main value, let's be real. She concluded by basically saying that her new job, quote, allowed her to leave this place. That's her literal words. And that just gives you some indication of the current state of Kotaku, right? Their staff are not happy. So, top talent's leaving. There's criticisms of overreaching, money-centric management, stuff like that going on. Kotaku, they're not going to be around much longer as an outlet that, I know this will be a controversial statement, but I do think Jason's work was high-quality reporting. They do, of course, pump out a lot of drivel, a lot of stuff that nobody really cares about. That will continue, right? I'm sure they could staff up with people who could produce that content, but in terms of the actual talent that gives them, institutional strength, that is fleeing. So I would imagine more listicles, more silly articles, more clickbaity things, and really just less good quality reporting. So there you go, Kotaku is pretty much on the way out of relevance, I would say. The next up, a fairly interesting situation. So the RuneScape maker Jagex has been purchased by a US-based asset management company called MacArthur Fortune Holding through their Platinum Fortune Fund, and to the tune of $530 million. That's a lot of bucks for RuneScape. Jagex was acquired from Shanghai Hongtu, I think, Network Technology, which was also acquired by the Platinum Fortune Fund. Now, while Jagex's management is going to stay the same, going forward, MacArthur Fortune will be strategically investing in their marketing, research, and development. Now, this sale has been rumored since January of 2019, so at least we now actually know for sure what's going on. And, you know, Jagex are an interesting bunch. Remember that Transformer game that totally failed? That was a weird one. But, I mean, if anything, right, this is testament to the massive and enduring popularity of RuneScape. I mean, it's interesting. You don't hear about RuneScape that often, but it clearly is massive. And if you go to the right places on the internet, you do actually see that, well, that is the case. Bit of a wild situation. I mean, with them being worth this much in, like, major investment money, you've got to think there's a bigger plan going on there, that there's something major going on that we just don't know about yet. At least if I was speculating, that's what I would say. And then next, a story that I think we're including because it's just a bit weird. So this week, Indivisible had a surprise digital launch on the Switch in North America. So surprising, in fact, that the developers of the game didn't know. Zero Lab only found out that the Switch release of their game happened when they received congratulations messages from their fans on Twitter. A very strange situation. Their project lead, Mike Zymot, basically, like, he commended the team for their work, but he did confirm that the live version is actually an old build that's missing several features like co-op and New Game Plus. So he, of course, had to apologize for the game not living up to its standards in the way it was released. Now, that plus the complete surprise, you know, like just lack of pre-launch PR or anything is just wild. And his apology is admirable. It makes sense. He must be very confused at this whole endeavor. And it seems like it's solely 505 Games' fault, being the publisher. They've yet to make a statement on this debacle beyond confirming they're looking into what occurred. But yeah, somehow a game got released. The developer didn't even know. That's just a little bit insane. Anyway, let's move on. So while GOG Galaxy 2.0 might still need a little bit of time in beta, it is getting all kinds of updates. That's actually pretty darn sweet what's going on there. So the most recent one is adding support for collecting various gaming subscriptions and making them all readily available through your library. And I mean, wow, that's actually really handy. It's another pretty significant step towards like GOG Galaxy just becoming this ultimate launcher that does everything. And like, it's attention to detail and actually thinking about what users would want, right? It's got this real user-centric view. It's really good. Like, it really is good. And this update actually also lets you link multiple EXEs to any games, as well as customize their launch parameters, which is another really good thing. And you know, it's funny with subscriptions. At some point, I'm actually wondering, you know, will there be room for a cheap subscription service that just collates all of your other subscription services into one place so you can manage your darn subscription services, because that seems to be the world we're getting to. But certainly, I mean, to be fair, in the gaming realm, some of those subscription services are a stupid amount of value. I mean, I think some of them are so valuable, they actually risk sort of devaluing what games are worth. That's going to be a really wild situation. But yeah, for now, GOG are doing really good work. I would recommend, if you can get access to it, do give it a try when it comes out. Absolutely. It's really, I mean, I really like using it. We've enjoyed it quite a bit. It was fun being in the earlier waves of access to it last year. So yeah, good on them. I think they're actually doing some really good work. Anyway, that is it for today's video. Let me know what you thought about the stories down below. If you want some loot, which has, you know, things like this and these lads as well, and some other stuff, you can check out the Patreon, and also the daily briefing, where our news team just goes through all the gaming news, boils it down in one post, and gives it to you. Very handy way to stay caught up on everything. I actually know that, you know, on the days when I'm not actually involved in news stuff that often, right, like if it's just a slow day and I'm doing other things, I actually log into it and I can use the daily briefing myself to get caught up. It's pretty darn handy. So, thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time.